Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. So we're just going to carry on from where we left off as usual. Again, if you need any help, check out the Discord, link will be in the description. Alright, so I'm actually going to start with upping my sensitivity because that is way too slow. So I'm going to go into our character controller, I'm going to make sure that the sensitivity is set to at least 20. So that should make it a little bit easier. We will look into locking the cursor a little bit later on. Cool. Alright, that's a lot quicker. Alright, so today we're going to work on gravity and jumping. So firstly, let's go ahead and throw in our gravity. So I'm going to open up our script. And let's just create a new header for gravity. And then inside here we'll create a public float for gravity. Actually, let's call that gravity amount. And then we'll also have a public float for player gravity. Alright, so this one's only going to be public for now, just so that we can read the values. So what we want to do is go down through to our calculate movement. And right here, just before we actually tell the controller to move, we're going to go ahead and throw in our gravity. So what we'll do is, quite simply, is we can put our player gravity minus equals gravity amount times time dot delta time. I'm just going to add an if statement as well, just so that the gravity doesn't grow to a tremendous value when we're grounded, so it'll only increase while we're in the air. So if I say if player gravity is less than -1 and our character controller is grounded. And then so what I can do in here is just force the player gravity to be -1. So that'll ensure that we still stick to the ground, but won't glitch through the ground because of too much gravity. Alright, so let's also add a maximum gravity speed, just so that we don't go supersonic while we're falling. So let's we'll just add that underneath gravity amount. Say public float gravity min. We'll just copy that, and just here where we take away from the player gravity, we'll just add another if. So we could say if player gravity is greater than our gravity min, then take away from it. Okay, so now we just need to apply these. So we can literally just say new movement speed plus equals player gravity. Of course, we only want to modify one axis, which is the y-axis. So we'll just say new movement speed dot y plus equals player gravity. So let's just quickly go in and just test that that's working. While we're here, we'll uncheck, we'll disable this capture collider here. Added it a bit prematurely, but we will make use of it later on. So with the gravity, let's give it some default values. So gravity amount, we could just set that to 1. Oh, actually, let's go 0.1. Gravity min, so we'll just set that to 3, for example. Of course, that will need to be -3. Alright, I'll just double check that I got this right. So if player gravity is greater than gravity min, yep, that's all looking good. So I'm not going to maximize on play, and let's go ahead and move our character up a little so we can actually see the gravity take effect. Also keep an eye on the variable down here. So if I hit play, you can see instantly start adding gravity and I'll fall to the ground. Okay, so and then the next thing we should be able to see is it doesn't go lower than -1. So that'll still keep me on the ground if I'm going down slopes and etc. So now that that's working, I want to prepare for the jumping. So I'm going to make this nice and simple as well. We're going to go ahead and edit our inputs. and we'll just create a new action for jump, and then I'll add the binding. So I just want it to be space on the keyboard, so nice and simple. I'll just leave that as a button. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. It'll regenerate the C# script. And I'm just going to go add that map now. So let's just create another private void for jump pressed. Or actually, we'll just leave it. Let's just leave it at jump. Alright, and inside here, let's just do a debug.log, and we'll just log jump pressed. Okay, now we need to call that function when we execute that map. So it's very similar to this. So we'll just do default input dot character dot jump dot performed. So we can just plus equals here, just continue what we were doing above, except this time we're not getting a value, we just want to call jump. Let's just go back into Unity and test that our debug.log is coming through. So I'll hit play. And you see when I press space, it does our debug.log. Alright, so the next thing I want to check is we only want to jump when we're grounded. So let's add a check in here. So if, and we'll say if we're not grounded, so we'll do an exclamation mark and we'll do our character controller dot is grounded, and what we'll do here is we'll just return. So if we're not grounded, don't proceed with this function. And then here we'll jump. Okay, so a few things I want to do first is I want to add another function similar to these for managing the jump. So it's a little bit more of a complicated jump. I don't just want to add force our character to go up into the air. I want to take into account the input. So if I'm walking forward and I hit jump, I want the player to move forward and up. If I'm not doing any input, then we can just move up. But I want it based off of the input. So if I jump and I'm moving forward, I want it to jump forward, not just up. So to do that, we'll be using a vector 3 instead of a straight value, because obviously we want to make use of the all three x's. So firstly, let's create this function. So we'll create a private void for calculate jump, and then make sure we put that in the update as well. We will go through and tidy this up a little bit later, but for now, I'm just happy to make some progress. Okay, so well, we can make our player gravity here. We can now make that a private. We don't need to see that anymore. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we'll start with our jumping. So let's create that public vector 3 for our jumping force. And then what we'll do is when we jump, firstly we'll just set that to a new vector 3, and we'll just do the Y for now, and we'll come back and do what I said earlier. So let's just add another section inside our player settings model for jumping, and inside here we'll just add a public float for jumping height, and also a public float for jumping fall off. So that's how long it takes for us to reach our peak and then start falling down. Okay, so let's get back into here. So the axis we want to modify is the Y. So actually, let's not do a new vector 3. We can just do vector 3 dot up and then times that by our player settings dot jump height, jumping height. Cool. Alright, so let's just go ahead and check that that's okay. So remember it's a public, so we should be able to see it in our inspector. So if I hit play, and it shouldn't do anything until I am grounded. So if I hit space now, we need to set some defaults. So jumping height, let's just set that to 1 for now so that we can see it work. So if I hit space now, you see it sets our jumping force here to 1, which is pretty much what we wanted. But now we also want to make it fall off. So that's where this calculate jump comes in. So firstly, we're going to be smooth damping. So let's just create a private vector3 for the jumping force velocity, which we'll use in our smooth damp. So what we want to do over time, using our fall off value that we put in that character settings, is we just want to do our jumping force equals vector3 dot smooth damp. What this takes is the value we want to smooth damp, the value we want it to smooth damp to, in our case is vector3 dot 0. So I'm basically resetting it over time back down to 0 on all axes. And then we need the velocity. So we'll just create a reference from the variable we created up here, our jumping force velocity. And then the time is the time we added in our player settings for our player settings dot jumping fall off. So if we have a look in Unity now, firstly, let's make sure that we have some good default values. So jumping height for now, let's set that to 10. Jumping fall off, we'll set that to 1, and let's just see how that behaves. So when I hit the ground, if I hit space, remember we're keeping an eye on this jumping force here. If I hit space, it goes up and then starts to count down. So one more thing I want to add is I don't want to be taking gravity. So let's go back into calculate movement. We're going to disable gravity while our jumping force is in play. So I'm just going to use jumping force, and here where I say where we check the velocity, make sure that we're not going supersonic. We'll just add another one, and we'll say if jumping force dot y is less than 0.1 f. Okay, so here we're basically saying, and the jumping force is pretty much ended, then we can continue adding gravity. So what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to go else. Actually, you know, let's leave that. And I'll actually do another if. Okay, so underneath here, we could just say if jumping force is greater than, so we're pretty much doing the opposite this time around. I just want to set player gravity to 0 because I want the jumping force to take effect straight away. Okay, so now we've got that set up. Let's actually use this jumping force. So right down inside our calculate movement, where we add our player gravity here, very simply we can just say new movement speed plus equals and then jumping force. However, I want to do this before we make it relative to the player. So let's just take that and put it up here. Or actually, no, sorry, I've changed my mind. We'll just leave that where it is. What we'll do is when we calculate the forward, left and right, we'll do it relative from the player regardless. So it should be okay here. So let's go ahead and test that now. So I imagine I'm going to jump ridiculously high. So I'm just going to put the jumping height down to 2 and the fall off down to 0.4. I'm going to hit play and just see how this behaves. So if I hit space now, okay, looks like I jumped really high anyway. So this obviously needs to be amended a little. So jumping height, say let's set that to 0.4 and fall off to 0.1. Okay, so you see we do need to play with the fall off values a little and make sure it's more in line with the gravity. So what I'm actually going to do is here where we do our new movement speed and we add our jumping force, let's just add a times time dot delta time here. And now for the values, let's try and match our jumping fall off with the gravity. So see here we got gravity amount. Let's try and match our jumping fall off with that, which we already have. So that's actually okay. And then our jumping height, let's just set that to 10. You may need to play with that fall off just to make it a little bit more. Okay, so aside from having to play with the values a little, we do have jumping in there and we also have gravity. So I think I'm going to end this tutorial here, but in the next one we'll just tidy this up a little bit more and actually get our player to jump forward if we're pressing forward. We might also have a look at reduced movement while we're in the air, because I know that creates a little bit more of a realistic feeling, but I think firstly we'll try to get those values just right. Cool, so thank you for watching. Join the Discord if you need any help or if you get stuck, and I'll see you in the next one.